Hey, what is going on, everyone? Ian here today. Going to be doing a quick analysis over Bitcoin. We're going to be looking at it for the long term and for the short term. Let's go ahead and dive into it. I'm also going to be giving a kind of a time frame essentially for when we can expect to be getting out of a bear market and transitioning into a bull market. And I'm going to give kind of some points of what we want to see to indicate that we're seeing that transition. So let's go ahead and start. So what we're going to start out with, let's go ahead and start with a rainbow pi. So I did a deep video or deep analysis on the rainbow pi in my last video. So if you want to see that, I will put a link in the description. But let's go ahead and I'm going to just go over it briefly. Essentially right now we are in this light blue cycle. This light blue cycle lasts around 195 to 200 days typically. So we are coming near the end of that cycle based off of the prior two reiterations. And when we enter this cycle, it is a good time to essentially start accumulating. It really depends. I mean, it's not the best time. As you can see here, it does drop significantly, typically after. So it really depends on what your strategy is. But as we enter this dark blue phase, that usually is a decent time to be accumulating. And it kind of shows the accumulation phase of the market that we're going into. So it basically is we see all this downside, and then we see a continuation of that downside, and then we start to see it transition into people accumulating Bitcoin, and then we see the accumulation start to play out typically. So as we enter this dark blue phase lasts around 400 days. And as we can see also right here, we are on the 200 simple. Something else to take note of, we have only tested the 200 simple once on the weekly. We are testing it again here. We probably see some kind of like accumulation and bounce right here. That's what I've been anticipating, but that's going to be on the lower time frames, which I'll go into depth on at the end. As I was saying, so this essentially lasts about 400 days. Looks like 385 for this one. And then with the maroon included, which basically what we want to look at is when are we going to get to a point where we're seeing Bitcoin take off, to where it's looking like it's a good time to be in Bitcoin, and where we're going to see the transition to where we're in a bull market again. And so if we take the measurement of the blue and the maroon colorings right here, and we look at how long these typically last, it's about 600 days. We can go back and measure this one too. That one was like 580. This one is around 580. This is on a weekly, so it could be off by a little bit. So around 600 days. So if we were to apply that to where we are right now, we're not yet in the dark blue cycle. We most likely will be in that within a week or two. So if we were to add that to where we are right now, as far as the time frame, it is July 8th. And we were to add 600 days, we're going to be roughly around like March, April of 2024. I'm just doing that math in my head, so I'm not sure how accurate it is, but it should be pretty close to that. Around March of April of 2024 is when we'd be anticipating entering this orange phase, where we will have gone through our accumulation cycle, and we'll have seen it start to play out, shake out some people, and then start to play into a bull market. So something I want to show you here. So this is going to be the halving. This is how many days we have until the halving, which is about 634. And the halving is, of course, when the block rewards get cut in half for all the miners. And so essentially, it becomes more expensive to an extent to mine Bitcoin unless Bitcoin goes up. And so for algorithm to work, you really want to see Bitcoin price going up, because in order to compensate for the loss in profits for the miners. So now we can go to this chart right here. So this chart looks at the past 1,458 days, and it uses that to predict where the pricing will be when we're at the halving, and what the pricing is going to look like for the next few years. Take this with like 100%. Take this with a massive grain of salt. This is looks very similar. It looks like they just copied and pasted almost like this past cycle. But we can use this for a sense of timing. And so if we come right here, we can see right here, this is roughly where we are. It's showing that we're going to get a little bit of a bounce right here to 23K, and it's looking like it's going to fade off. We're going to drop down, get to this low 10K, 9K area, and I'll show you why that's relevant soon too. But if we were to look over into March of 2024 in April, you'll see we're right at the entrance into our bull market, to where we go, based off of this, we'll go up to 190K. So we're right at the entrance to that. So the timing kind of lines up too with where we'd be expecting to see Bitcoin start to transition into a bull market. We can also look at the fear and greed index just for fun. This isn't going to be for long term. I just like to keep a track of this As we see right here, we're getting kind of all this like jumbled up action in the fear side, and we see that a lot where we get a lot of that bounces up, comes back down, bounces up, comes back down, and so I'm we want to see it when we're in the bull market be more so on the top side, bouncing to the top side, coming back down to low 40s, not coming back down to like I think this is also the lowest read we've gotten 6. Um, so there's not too much merit with this. It's just to show that we're kind of in a bear cycle right here off of this, as we're just popping up to like the high 40s. We want to be on the opposite side. Basically, we're popping up to the 40 and 50 reads, popping back down to the low side. We want to be popping up to the 90s and then popping back down to the 50s. So we're just on the opposite side of that, showing that we are kind of in a bear market. And then also we have again this time frame showing aligning with the 600 and some odd days for the pi cycle. The pi cycle is based off of a crossing of these moving averages, and as we can see, we got that cross right here, and that was when it was putting in the pi cycle top. Now let's go to what was the next one. So we're gonna go to this super hash. So there's gonna be the hash ribbons and the super guppy. So another thing we want to see to be indicating that we are coming out of this cycle. As you can see here, this is based on a weekly. We're looking at the BLX index just because it has the most price history. We get these dark gray lines, and then once we turn this red line, it's actually the low is typically in. The low has been in the past two prior reiterations. The problem with a lot of this analysis, there's only 2 reiterations of a lot of this, but I mean we'll do the best with what we have. And so typically the low has been put in once this starts to turn red. We haven't even gotten close really to turning red yet. We still have probably several more months left at least before we start to see that. But that is going to be the next indication showing you that well, maybe the low is going to be in. So we probably within this next few months put in our low, and I would be anticipating that to be around like 9 to 12K. But it could be higher than that. It could be lower than that, really, especially considering where there's talks of a recession. Like that's definitely something to keep in mind. Is Bitcoin has not been through a recession yet, and that is what the talks are of right now, and that is what we're expecting. And so, it could perform. It could be more volatile to the downside because of that. What else are we seeing? We have the hash ribbons. We're seeing a capitulation signal right here. This is something giving us an indication that we're going to see a bounce soon. We're seeing capitulation. We want to see this turn into a buy signal. Typically, a lot of times when that buy signal has been put in, the low has been put in. So what that could be signifying is that, and keep in mind, it's not every time it's been like that, but a lot of the times, the majority of the times, the low has been in. Maybe I'll do a video going over that, but we can see right here, this one it was one off. It did not happen. But we can go back. If you go back and look at some of these buy signals, the prior low has been your mainly in your macro low. There's 2 one-off. There's one right here, and there's one right here, I believe. And then I think most of the other ones, it's been your prior low end. But we are seeing capitulation, so we're going to be waiting for a buy signal on that, and it's not necessarily the best timing to be getting in, but that is just kind of again signifying that we probably will get a bounce sometime soon here, maybe up to 24K. Maybe if we can break through that, maybe we get to the high side. But again, I'll go into more detail about that later. But we want to see one of these buy signals too, typically when we're getting that transition as well. As we see, we get a bunch of them before we start to really take off. So that would also be another indication you can look out for when we are entering the bull cycle, and it's a good time to be expecting that transition. Now we also have the DMI right here, so this one's a really good one to look at as well. If we look at it on a weekly, we can come back down to right here over in March 2019. As we see, so the light blue line represents the bulls, the pink line represents the bears, and the solid line in the background, or solid or light gray line, represents strength. And so what we want to see is it cross this median line right here, like it does right here, and cross the basically we want to see it cross a median line, have a solid white line in the background, and cross the pink, showing that the bulls are taking control. So as we see that happen right here, the weekly, it pretty much gives you a perfect signal, and then we just continue on to the top side. After the signal, we get a 173% to the top, and then we see this, another basically accumulation phase, and then it continues on. But if you're just, doing long term for Bitcoin, from bottom to top, you're looking at 1200% from there. So good indicator right there. And then over here we can see as well, and you can tell the big thing to look at is correlation with these. So combining the fact that we are getting a buy signal as we've been in this red on the super guppy for a while, perhaps with a buy signal with the hash ribbons, or with us uptrending on a weekly, something like that. There's a lot of ways to combine these to give you an indication that we're getting out of this bear market. As you can see right here, we get another signal right here in October 2015, and then we are off to the races. Pretty much after we get this signal, which would technically be right here. I mean, for that line right there, we went up like 97%, and then altogether we went up, 7,600%. I would expect these bounces to get less volatile, or these bull markets get less volatile, but that, again, something to just, keep in mind that it will get less volatile as we go on, because there will be more people with owning Bitcoin, and people who will be more experienced and less prone to getting shaken out. And so, if you are a veteran in this market, then you probably understand that this is common. Like, this is not new. If you're new to the market, you might feel a lot of emotions, but for a lot of us who have been through the 2018 crash, it's really not. It's really just the way a new asset performs like this. But now let's go ahead and look at the Joule right here. So we'll look at the Joule, and we'll look at the RSI too. So if we see the Joule, this isn't going to give us too much. So this is just kind of like a little bit of extra to look at. If we come back here over to October 2014, we see that we get a test to this purple, basically the oversold line. We've only gotten this low once in the very beginning of the Joule, actually. And that did signify a low, to be fair. But right here, we see a little test into it, and then we see this bounce. So let's go right here. So we see the test of the Joule right here into this purple shaded area, showing the oversold, and we get like a little 60% bounce right here. Okay, a little fake out, and then we see it dump to the downside, and then we see it retest that purple with a little bit of divergence, yes, and then that kind of signals your bottom right there. There's not like a ton of reiterations that I can find of this. I haven't gone deep into this. Actually, we could say this is one. It does not test the purple line, but it gets low close to it, and we get a little bit of a bounce right here, where we're testing our low of about 45%, and then we start to droop off and we fall over, and then we come back and test the purple line, the purple shaded area, and then we're off to off to the bull market. We did get a big dump right here in 2020. Of course, that was a black swan event though. So what we can see right here is, now you could say technically that this was your little bounce if you're looking at for patterns, and then now you're falling off right here. So then now that once we turn up, then that's your low. That's totally a possibility. And given the fact that we're having capitulation signal on the hash ribbons that we're going to give a buy, we probably do get a decent sized bounce. But I'm going to dive into the lower term time frames now. I think that's everything. Oh, we'll look at the RSI real quick. Okay, so the RSI is in this bearish control zone right now. We're on the BLX. Cool. Okay. So we don't spend too long down here, really. Like, once we dip down here, a lot of the time. So I wouldn't anticipate it staying down here. As you can see in this bear market right here, we stayed in the oversold area for like 98 days. And then if we come over here, it did stay a lot longer. I think here it stayed like 200 and some odd. But it did get out a few times. So if we want to be really accurate, it gets out right here on 224 days. But your low is kind of in right there. So I do think that we're probably going to put our low in sooner rather than later, if I had to guess, just because we are at extremes right here. And we are in this oversold area. So I think we're going to kind of bounce around in this area, maybe get a significant bounce and then get a test of the low side. However, this could also be your low. I don't think it is. We haven't, based off of just prior history, a lot of the times from top to bottom. Let's actually do this real quick live. So around 84% from top to bottom on this bear market. And then we go here. Let's see what we got here. Around 86%. So if we were to do a little math real quick, or not math, do a little projection right here into the future, we can see that we'll do 83 to 86%. 83% is going to be around that 11,500 area, and 86% is going to be around $9,500 area. And this is also where we have a lot of our liquidity. And so these volume blocks over here are going to act as a support. And so that would be a pretty solid area to be expecting a low. There's a lot of factors that go into this. There's the Ukraine war. There's a lot of things that I think will probably lead into this and how long this takes. But I think overall Bitcoin's been pretty true to its history. So that's what I'd be expecting as far as lows are going to be put in, if they are. Again, we could put in a low here and start to bounce, get a buy signal on the hash ribbon, start to trend up upwards on a weekly, and then that would be enough for me. But You got to decide the factors for yourself for what are going to tell you when is a good time to be in. I like using the pi cycle for timing's sake. But let's just go to the low term time frames now. And as it is the weekend, we'll look at CMEs and then we'll look at Bitcoin so that we can. Let me erase all this. This is I haven't messed with this chart in a while. Let's remove all the drawings. So let's just look at the lower time frame stuff. As we can see here, let's put a few of these lines in. Horizontals. I mean, really, this is going to act as probably a solid low. So as we can see in the VPVR, like right here, we have a little volume block right here. So if we do break down lower, I could see it getting down to really, again, like this area, this 13,000. It's like 12,000 area. I don't know if we get into the lower than that, like based off of this, but if we do get a little bit more of a bounce, though, we have a little big space right here to where we could pop up to around 29K. I don't think we get above that. If we can get above this 31K area, that would be pretty solid. That's going to take a lot, though. I could see us bounce up to like the high 20Ks, 20K area. But however, I don't know how I feel about it getting higher than that as of right now. Now let's look at this as well. As we can see right here, we have this little pattern playing out, a little symmetrical triangle. The measure move points around 24K, so I would be expecting us to get to around 24K, and we'll see how it plays out from there. Does it start to droop over and then fall back off again? Then maybe we come back down, put in new lows, or does it break out and get a little bit higher of a bounce? The thing here is, right now, what I'm looking for is when are we going to start our accumulation phase? And so we want to see the low get put in sooner rather than later anyway, so that the low's in, and it'll still shake people out. It'll still be bouncing. People are going to be expecting the bull market too soon, the wrong times, and we will see like probably a long, boring, sideways action accumulation phase, between like 9 to 12 to 15K. Or even where we are right now, and I think that's when we'll eventually see it start to eventually transition out. And this is a long-term asset for me. I do trade it sometimes. Right now, I'm taking a break from trading it. I took a break from trading it, right here as we started break out to the downside. As it's an asset breaking to the downside, I don't like the play just because of psychology reasons to the downside. So I swap and I play other assets as well, which I will go over in other videos, as well as just overall trading and financial stuff as well. But let's go ahead and call the video there. I don't think there's anything else I needed to go over. That pretty much covers it. So hopefully that gives you guys an idea of a time frame of when, at least for me, when I'm expecting essentially us to see a transition, how long I'm expecting this phase to last, and when I'm expecting to see a transition into the bull market. As for right now, I do expect a little bit of a bounce at least, and we'll see how that plays out. Do we get up to the high 20K? Do we break 24K? If we do, okay, cool. Then I'd be expecting maybe up to 28K, give or take, and then from there we'd have to reassess. But if you guys enjoyed the video, please subscribe. If you want to see more content, I'm going to be covering like all kinds of different assets, how I trade them, how to trade them, as well as just other more traditional financial instruments and like safe exchanges to trade on and earn interest on crypto, all kinds of different financial assets. Mainly going to be focused on crypto, and but I will be covering some of the other things that I trade as well. So if that sounds interesting to you, check out the channel. That's going to be it for me, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.